There was something that I think you guys should do. I really recommend movies. I really, really recommend movies. And the reason why I really recommend movies is because sometimes they tell stories that, honestly, a psychology class or even a self-help lesson or a mentor couldn't even teach. Unless he said the story, and it took him 2 hours by a campfire. Movies are inherently the way that we can understand things because they're stories, and that's the way that our brains are influenced. And the movie I wanted to recommend is The Count of Monte Cristo. Has anybody ever seen it? The 2001, Guy Pearce, and the guy who plays Jesus. Forgot his name.
Yes.
You've seen it?
Yes.
How long ago?
I'm sorry, what?
How long ago?
Oh, geez. I've seen it multiple times, but probably maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
So that's amazing. You've seen it multiple times. This was my second time through. I watched it initially when I was about 10, and then I'm 24. So there was something that really blew my mind about the film, and I think that everybody should watch it, especially if they're trying to create a really big shift in their life, and especially if they're going through something very difficult. This movie, well, of course, it was written by the guy who wrote The Three Musketeers, so this probably came out 300 years ago. The book was written. And it's an absolute inspiration from the Joseph story in the Bible, which I also think is fucking insane. But the good news about this story is it kind of allows the personal, subjective interpretation of the story to come out in the film. And my God, there's nothing that I've actually had that has blown me away at such an effect like that film has. I'm not just hyping it up because I had a great time. I'm really communicating about how the ultimate struggle in life is not just between yourself and the obstacles ahead of you, because those things are certainly going to be overcome. It's actually your relationship with God and whether or not you feel that you've been abandoned. And I think that there's something really fascinating there. We all have that. Either nature's indifference or God's cruelty. There's something about looking at reality and placing an expectation on it and then becoming entitled. And the movie is a pure antidote to entitlement. And it allows you to realize that your life is supposed to happen the way that it is. You're just supposed to connect to it. Bad things don't just happen. And I believe that that's the day that you start to wake up and you start recognizing why is it some people are, quote, blessed and other people aren't. That was never the question to ask yourself. It was, what is your relationship with your life? Because that's all that matters. So entitlement, victimization, those things are pretty much what ruin your life. Everything else doesn't even come close. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you had all the time in the world and you accepted the environment that you were in with small steps forward, you not only amass great wealth, but you would become a considerable person, a respectable person to yourself. We forgot that process. You think about if you guys showed up every day for yourself, like what would you become? You think about if your mentor was you 10 years from now, telling you all of these things and guaranteeing an outcome, because he could guarantee an outcome. I can't guarantee the outcome that future you can guarantee. Future you comes in that room, sits down in the chair in front of you and goes, hey, I know what you can become. There are things that you need to change. There's your habits and your characteristics. They're keeping you broke. They're keeping you sad. They're keeping you insecure. They're keeping you with shitty people in your life. All the people you have are imposters, and you're exceptionally naive. We're going to start doing these small things every day. And by the end of this 5 years, I'll guarantee all of those things for you. Would you guys do it? Because it's funny. It's always another person that you embody that you go, this guy's the guy that I want to tell me that. But really, ultimately, I can't tell you anything that you can't tell yourself. And so I was really taken away by this film, and I kind of just want to start it off with this because I believe that we can all learn from how much we really want to grow. I think that when we see the movie and the montage, so to speak, every part of us goes, I want to show up to the things that are good for me. And you're like, well, why is it so damn hard? Why is it so damn hard? And the movie is inherently about a person who's exceptionally naive but exceptionally blessed. And he kind of has to learn a little bit about God. His interpretation of God was one that was bless him for everything. He was extraordinarily blessed. He was handsome. He was good looking. His fiancée was beautiful. He thought his best friend was his best friend, and he thought that you could trust Napoleon, right? And it's like, no, you can't. They're a bunch of politicians. So he lived in a reality where there was just one dimension. And he had to have the other dimension whipped into him to recognize that God is fully encompassing and God has never left. So the film is exceptional. I do recommend you watch it. But there's something really interesting that once you start this moment of change, and the movie, if you look at it, is not just a movie about a guy who just goes through shitty circumstance. We all do. It's about a person who voluntarily wants to grow. And you could see that. He wants more from his life. He wants more from himself. And then we often go, why is this fucking happening? It's like, watch the fucking movie. you know your life ends. And you ask yourself, what have I done with it? A majority of it has been looking at a screen and spectating everybody else's life opposed to participating in your own and reading your own books and experiencing your own mind and experiencing your life and your family and your body and your heart and your love. And that's the whole point of what we do here. We want everybody just connected, 100% in. And I notice this. It's like, why don't we, right? That's why we're here. We're here to be better. Not because we aren't enough, but because if you were enough, you would understand how much more you can be. And that's a great place to start. And you won't do it by criticizing that you're not enough. You'll be open to the fact that you're so much more with the time that you have. Because if you're alive, you can. You can access that. So let's go ahead. Let's just talk to everybody here. You know, well, why not? Let's start with Carlos. He's new. And we spoke yesterday. We talked a lot about self-worth. We'd love to hear what you internalized, what kind of shifts that you've made, if any. And if not, we'd love to hear what you're dealing with. And then we'll take it one step at a time. Carlos, you there?
Yes, yeah.
Wonderful.
So that's the problem. I won't be able to talk much because my shift from work changed. So I'm a school driver, and
Nice.
I'm having an early release today. But I was just wondering the same thing earlier that you were just talking about.
Wonderful.
Like, why is it so hard for me to show up for myself? Because deep down I knew that the relationship wasn't gonna work, that it wasn't worth it, but I didn't want to let go. And it took you to tell me that the relationship is doomed for me to take action to actually break it. So since then, I've been like, I haven't had a conversation with her about it or nothing. Haven't talked to her nothing about it, about like what I'm doing. She actually said that you're amazing, that you're gonna change my life for good. But other than that, I've been journaling. I started journaling because I wanted to write down what I was thinking and like go back to it, so I can learn how to know myself more and beliefs that I have that won't sue me going forward.
This is wild.
Basically what I've been doing.
That's wild. I recommend you watch the movie Count of Monte Cristo.
I will.
I think that, yeah, no, it's definitely something you should do today. You could buy it on YouTube for $5. That's what I did. I just connected it to my screen and just had the greatest time of my life, to be honest with you. And it really made me realize something. It's like, okay, why is it we can't change? Why we have such a hard time to change? And there's a few things that I noticed, and I think that number one is the environments that you're in do not cultivate growth. They don't. You could learn more in a cellar. You know, some part of you guys have kind of like this wet dream of like, man, if I just fucking had a zone where I could focus, pick up books, I'd learn French, German. I'd be reading Freud backwards and forward. I'd be halfway through every single fucking book that I've ever seen and read. And you're like, well, why isn't it that we have the ability to do that? It's like, well, there's so much doubt about your own self-worth, and you're in environments that do not cultivate growth. And I often noticed, like, that movie did something really interesting, that he was able to learn more at fucking prison than he was in any school or university, because all he had time to do was focus, and he had no fucking excuse or better appointments to be at. There's something so loving about that act of being completely in a total state of monk mode, so to speak. And I kind of recognize that there's a certain kind of self-worth that you start accessing when your only joy in life comes from unlocking parts of yourself. And if the environment you're in does not help you unlock parts of you, then why are you in those environments? If they don't unlock you, they lock you up. And that's like, you know, I really, there's a lot of humility I'm experiencing at the moment. And I want to share that with you guys. I think it's the most powerful emotion that you guys can experience. So something I wanted to talk about last time, I mentioned it. I said, doing a lot of shadow work, right? And inherently, what are the parts of you that you enjoy about the shitty environments that you're in is a really great drill to do. You know, what part of you enjoys the fact that, what part of you also wants the shit to fall apart? I mean, I always ask myself that question in a relationship. When I was in a relationship and I wasn't quite feeling the connection and fulfillment, I asked myself a question. if she broke up with me, would I be a better man for it? And the answer was always yes. I've to this day to meet a girl that if I was with and we built together would have made me a better man with each other. So it's like a really interesting question. Like, why are we really here? Like, it's to be better. It's to be better. Not because you're not enough, but to see what you're made of, you yourself personally. You know, like you don't want to, it's think about the biggest disappointment you can ever have. It's inherently that your life is exactly the same 3 years down the line. Now, of course, people take this and make it a God, but that's not the point. You're supposed to live life with intention. So how the hell can your life be the same if you lived every day with intention? There's going to come a point where you make decisions that change you, and that will alter your spirit, and will alter your mind, and will alter your heart, and will alter the people that you're around. And you ask yourself a question, if nothing changes, nothing changes. You know what hell is? Same place, same life, same environment as you get older. You look in the mirror, you see more wrinkles around your eyes, you see your hair is not as thick, your body is a little more frail. That's hell. And everything around you had about as much fulfillment as it did 3 years prior. There's no progress. So we need progress. And a lot of us quantify our progress by like, oh, I read 6 books this year. Like, no. What is the intention of the book reading itself? What are you building yourself into? Who are you modeling yourself to become? Who are the mentors that you have? Who are the people that you're inspired by? We are still children. And we need to live with that kind of openness, that kind of childish curiosity. Think about how much you'd absorb. You know, children learn Mandarin in a fucking series of weeks. We're out here fucking throwing the back out, trying to do Duolingo for 5 minutes. And I often notice, it's like, okay, why is it we're not focused? Why is it we're not determined? And it's like, perhaps because we're not committed. Because I've often noticed that when people have to do things, they do things. Because it's called do or die. Now, putting yourself at gunpoint is not the point here. But I often notice it's about accessing that part of you that is completely and totally interested. So I want to tap into that with you guys. So let's go ahead and let's hear about some other things that you guys are struggling with and dealing with before just having like another classic kind of lecture style thing, because I'd rather keep it personal. Ed, what's going on with you?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, I haven't done any drugs for a pretty long time now. My drinking has been cut down tremendously. I still have those urges after work. Oh yeah, long day. I want to have a drink, but I haven't been doing that. I'm back at the gym. I have all my meal prep ready, so I am feeling better. I don't feel I mean, I'm not sure if you've drank habitually, but there are the days where it's like, oh, I want to blow off steam, I'm stressed out, I want to have a drink to cut the edge off. But I've noticed the days I do that, it's a momentary release. But the next day, I'm not hungover or anything, but I can feel this wear and tear on my body that's been exacerbated by the drinking or partying,
Yeah.
And I don't have that now. As far as like relationship-wise, I'm still trying to reconcile. You yourself and my other therapist have told me I don't think going to bars and clubs is the best place to meet partner, a spouse, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I'm still working through that, wondering, okay, if that's not the case, then where, But at the same time, I'm also putting a lot more effort and intention to myself, i.e. the working out, the not drinking, the not partying, eating healthier, etc.
So here's a great question to ask yourself, right? Well, one of the things is I've had this big belief in my life, right? In regards to dating, it's like, okay, where do I meet girls, right? And this goes for you, Carlos, Alessandro, Nathan, Oscar. There's a particular kind of scarcity that a lot of people have in their life, and that often dictates their behaviors and the environments that they go into. Because truth be told, it's like saying that 50% of the cosmos is nowhere to be found around. It's actually every other step you take. 1 step masculine, 2nd step feminine, 3rd step masculine, 4th step feminine, just like that. It's just every other step. So, and once you start to challenge that reality. Now, here's something I noticed. I went to clubs and bars when I lacked my ability to socialize with anybody, and I had a belief system that I was a creep when I didn't speak to people within social environments. So one of the two things, either one, we're evolutionary creatures and we love to speak to each other all the time everywhere that we go, and every person has a subconscious romantic plot that would love somebody to bump into them at the grocery store and go pins bowling with them later, right? Or everybody can only meet other people in environments by which there is a green light ability to socialize, where there's always alcohol, which I find even more interesting. It's just like God damn, brother, like the way that society is structured is an anti-human society at the moment. I spoke about this with Nathan the other day, is that there's three things that you can do to control a society. First, you can control its dick, as an inherently the sexual, intimate relationships by which people engage with each other. So you have to distort sex in one way or another. First, they control sex. After that, they can shift and control the belief systems that you have, because all the belief systems protect sex. So then you have to go ahead and attack the belief systems that you have, the things that you believe that are right. And then the last one is inherently how people can interact with each other. All three of those things have been manipulated and tarnished. Most people can't identify their beliefs. Most people don't know the kind of sex that they want. Most people don't even understand what sex is to them. And most people can't even have open conversations without somebody getting triggered. Somebody says Joe Biden or Donald Trump and people's clits start pulsing. It's ridiculous. So I started recognizing that also people can't communicate like human beings can, which is openly, honestly, and intentional. So we're inherently being separated further and further away from our humanity, which is making us ask stupid questions. Well, not stupid, or perhaps a feeling of can somebody ask that question? If I don't go to clubs and bars, how can I meet women? Right? You think about that. Because if you were to put that in a bubble, it makes sense. So what is the system of beliefs that you have that put you in that bubble? And then there was another thing that I recognized is how can we unlock more of this self-love? There was something for me that always scared me. It was actually approaching people, and I think even more importantly than approaching people, looking at my life like stepping out into a Target and going, what do I want? And just going through all the aisles. Now, that's somebody who has a feeling of belief in themselves, because I think that's where everything ultimately amounts to, a feeling of self-worth. How much self-worth do you have? Well, the same way I go to Target, and if I want these potato chips, I'll grab them, take them to the cashier register. Now, I think the best thing you can do is start challenging yourself, because I think that's what you really want. There's a part of yourself that's hidden, that's not unlocked. Isn't that what we want to access? Right? It's like, ooh, okay, well, that makes you a little uncomfortable. Maybe that's exactly where you should go. You feel resistance, push against the resistance. Because I've often noticed in my life that anywhere where there's resistance, that's exactly where I should go. I thought that it was absolutely beautiful when I looked at my life that way. It was like, okay, what am I having resistance to? Well, bachata. Ah, fuck. Why? Well, because I'm a good dancer. But what if I'm not as good as I think I am? Oof. Right? Now my ego gets hurt. Now also another thing is inherently my whole life going out to clubs and bars, and it was great always having a social circle, but I was never really satisfied or fulfilled. Why was I not satisfied or fulfilled? I had beautiful women. I had access to some of the high status places. Well, I had no relationship with myself to where I believe I could access it anywhere at any point. Isn't that what you want? The ability to access it anywhere at any point. So that means that there's something in you that you need to develop that you're too afraid of developing, because you know it will change your life and will change the way that you see it. And perhaps you like the life that you're in because it keeps you safe. And I noticed that myself. It was like, oh, well, do you know what's great about bars, clubs, Snapchats, and dating apps? Well, I never had dating apps, but Instagram's the biggest dating app of all time. It was comfortable. I didn't have to access this part of me. What was that part of me? Well, it was very dark, very self-interested, very animal-like. It'd be going against everybody else's perception of me. And this is what I was trying to integrate into the conversation today, which is, how do you access a part of you that is so disinterested in anything else that is not your own needs? Well, that sounds kind of dark. Something that's completely and totally self-interested. Matthew, good to have you back, man. Let me hide my thing because I can't see you in that corner. So what do we want to tap into? This complete and total self-interest. And the complete and total self-interest comes from the shadow. So I like what you kind of mentioned there, Ed, which is like, okay, well, how do I meet this? Clearly, you have a human basic need that you need to meet. Let's not look at it like you needing to get something. Look at yourself giving yourself something. What would that be, that one thing that you can give yourself in the context of relationships and dating? That would give you this feeling of unwaveredness if we sent you out to Paris.
Are you actually asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you that.
Oh, giving myself something. I guess, permission. You know, one of the things that I recently discovered is that, what's the word? There's this shame, this fear of rejection. Not so much the fact that, like, no one likes being rejected, I guess. It's, you know, where I'm at, Omaha's it's a pretty small town. I mean, it's about 1 million people. But my family here is pretty well known. People know me really well.
Yeah.
And getting shot down would sting personally, but seeing my peers and people know me getting shot down, the fear of that makes it much more difficult for me. So I guess, you know, no shame, no ego bruising, and, you know, I guess allowing the world to give me permission, myself including, to, you know, do whatever I want. You know?
Very rich. Very rich. Absolutely. Because I think most of you guys don't understand this, that the fear of rejection doesn't give you permission to interact with what you like. So really, what is the fear of rejection? It's a condition that you hold on yourself. What is that condition? Identify it. What is the condition I hold on myself that doesn't allow me to approach the girl, that doesn't allow me to communicate with anybody that I want to? What is that belief that I have, right? It's a limitation. Now, I like the way you said it, because this is actually true. I was with my friend, and we were going out, we're doing some like field work, whatever you want to call it. And he's like, well, how do you just effortlessly just talk to those girls? Like, nothing stopped you. And I said, well, I just allowed myself, and I have no conditions. The natural instinct between opposites is that. They come together.